So, good afternoon or good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Stanley Kipsang. I'm a senior lecturer at Mo University, School of Business and Economics, Department of Management Science and Entrepreneurship. I am also an HR analyst and an AI specialist. By leveraging data, I help organizations transform their workforce data into actionable insights that will inform decision making and help them improve employee productivity and workforce or organizational development. So today I have this presentation, and this is about people analytics dashboard development. It's a comprehensive training guide for HR professionals using Google Looker Studio. Now, I'll take you through around 6 or 5 key things. One, I'll introduce this particular presentation. Second thing that we look into is the core metrics and KPIs. The third thing that we go through is data sources and integration. The fourth is the development process, which I'll be able to show you how to develop a dashboard using Google Looker Studio. And then the last part will be best practices and success measurements. So straight away, we go to the first part, which is introduction to people analytics. Now, you find that the rise of people analytics has been, at the forefront in terms of organizations implementing or adapting this people analytics practice. And I want to put this presentation into perspective by drawing from Google Analytics training, where they came up with a 5 or a 6-step process denoted as APASA, where A is for asking data-driven questions, P is for preparing data, the other P is for processing data, A is for analyzing data, S is for sharing the data or insights, and the last part is action, taking action based on the insights. And I want us to concentrate on this aspect of sharing, because that is where the concept of dashboard comes in. Because here we are looking at it from the point of how do you communicate this information? How do you share this information to your intended recipients, who are basically maybe your executives, your board of directors, your stakeholders, and so on. So you want to really be able to present information that it captures a summary of the entire analysis process, so that at that particular point, they can be able to look at what you've shared, see your visuals, see your charts, and from what you've been able to present, then they can be able to make decisions, and inform, how organization will be able to take the next step, depending on what you are presenting. So you find that there are critical elements, when you talk about people analytics, you find that organizations have, executives who have been able to adopt this practice, report that their organizations, have been able to implement their strategies, And that's why we say that there is need for organizations to really embrace or use dashboards, so that they can be able to effectively communicate what needs to be, shared with the different people or the interested parties within the organization. And that now will help them be able to make decisions that are based on facts. And that will help them, again, be able to, ensure that they enhance, if it's organizational performance, if it's improving employee productivity, if it's about improving of the entire organizational process, that can be done. And the decision that is going to be taken will be based on some tangible evidence. So why do you want to use Google Looker Studio? Google Looker Studio is a web-based application, and one it's available online, and it's free. You don't pay anything. It's completely free with no licensing fees. Number two, it's user friendly. Yeah, you can be able to, the drag drop functionalities, as you prepare your dashboard. It's good for those people who have no technical background in terms of coding, and all that. There are so many connectors. Google Looker Studio connects to so many other platforms. 600 plus. So if you have your human resource management system, if you have your cloud-based system, whatever system that you have, Google Looker Studio connects, and it can be able to import data from the system, and you can be able to do the analysis, prepare the dashboards, and share the same information or link to your people or the organization through the same platform. So there's cloud collaboration, meaning that there's real-time sharing and collaboration capabilities, which means that multiple people can work on the same document. You can access this document from any platform, because it's web-based. It means it's cloud-based, so you can access it from any device. And there is no fear of losing your files, because they are stored in the cloud. There is a full customization, means that the dashboards and the reports are tailored towards organizational needs. They are basically inclined to what you want to address. And lastly, they have a responsive design. Dashboards work seamlessly across devices. Desktop, tablets. Even mobile platform. You can be able to access this information from whatever device that you have. So you see that Google Looker Studio is a good web application that can be used by people who are still new in this analytics environment. And you can be able to easily prepare your data, process your data, and come up with visuals that can be shared with team members, with your bosses, with your line managers, and so on. So let's understand what is people analytics dashboard. So a people analytics dashboard is a business intelligence tool that allows HR teams to track, analyze, and report HR key performance indicators. So it is able to consolidate data from multiple sources into a single, visual interface that now can be able to tell stories in a coherent manner. So you draw data from different sources, you come and build your dashboard. So the dashboard now can be able to, communicate information that your intended recipients can be able to look into, understand what you're saying, and can ultimately make decisions based on what you've shared. And because Google Looker Studio has the capacity to connect, to different connectors, then there's an element of data integration, whereby dashboards can be pulled from multiple systems. You can pull your dashboard from the human resource information system, the applicant tracking system, the learning management system. You can name them, the payroll system, and so on. So you have the capacity to get access to data sets from different platforms, and that really can help you be able to get enough information that you can digest, digress, and be able to clearly, share with the people who are supposed to make decisions. So when we talk about the dashboard benefits, from this Google Looker Studio, there's at-glance visibility. There's instant access to critical workforce metrics without really navigating to multiple systems, because you're able to draw information from these different systems. Then within, from a glance, somebody can be able to understand what, the metrics are saying. Yeah. So there is operational monitoring. You can see, you can track day-to-day operations and be able to identify issues as they emerge early enough, and be able to take the necessary corrective action before, these things mutate to become more problems or more problematic. So because you can track day-to-day, activities, then any instance of a problem cropping up, an issue cropping up, it can be addressed at an early stage before, it escalates to become a bigger problem. There is issue of strategic planning. It enables long-term workforce planning, trend analysis, and forecasting. You can be able now to plan your workforce. You can do demand forecasting, you can do supply forecasting. You can be able to know exactly the kind of people that you require in terms of numbers, in terms of skill, in terms of experience. You'll also be able to know where to source these people. What are the sources that you can get these employees? So the dashboard can give you that information. Then you can be able to draw insights. You can transform these raw data into decisions that drive organizational success. So what you're saying is that the whole process starts with the data sources. Then there's integration of these data sources with Google Looker Studio. Then once the data has been integrated, then you build the visuals. So once you build the visuals, then you can now be able to draw insights from those visuals and now report on what you found out, and the decisions that can now be made based on your presentation. So we have two aspects here, the dashboard and the reports. They normally use interchangeably, but they more or less give the same information. But now is the difference that one is intended for more for operational purposes, and the other one is intended for decision making. So dashboards can be used basically by land managers, by HR operations officers, and so on, because they give you on the spot statistics that can help you make decisions at that particular point. So you're able to monitor trends, you're able to monitor changes in the organization performance or any other metric that you're tracking. And from there, you can be able to make decisions and address any problem that might be identified at that particular point before now you are able to, prepare a more comprehensive report that now you will share with the executive. So the question that dashboard answer here is what is happening right now? What are the things that are going on? So the charts, the visuals will give you the on the spot information about the current situation. The reports, on the other hand, answers the questions why, what happened, and why. So it offers a detailed analysis of specific areas or time periods, and they more or less provide more comprehensive information. And this is normally provided or shared with executives who can now be able now to make decisions, at that particular point. So you find organizations are embracing a hybrid kind of model where you have part of the report are dashboards or charts and visuals, and then the other section is explaining what those visuals mean. So the report tends to include more of explanations and the recommendations, what needs to be done based on the analysis, on the evaluation. So having a hybrid model can help you at least understand the statistics and of course interpret them in terms of what needs to be done based on those figures. Then analytics creates a value proposition. One, there is instant trend identification. You can be able to identify trend quickly. You can spot patterns such as increasing turnover in specific departments, in specific sections, accelerated hiring rates before they actually become serious issues. So as I've just said, that you can be able to spot changes at that particular point. You can be able to spot problems. And once you're able to spot those problems. Then at that particular point, you can address them early enough, so that they don't escalate to become serious issues later. The other thing is that it enhances employee experience. So you can track engagement metrics, when you want to understand how well your employees are engaged. Then metrics like employee net promoter scores can give you, a snapshot of how employees are engaged in the organization. You can be able to see how, how they can promote. Do they have the, do they have the willingness to talk about the company positively? So you can be able to track that. You can make data-driven decisions. We are talking about replacing gut feelings with evidence-based insights, and you're able to ensure that HR strategies are grounded on actual workforce data. We are moving away from making decisions based on experience, based on feelings, based on, past occurrences. So we want to make decisions based on numbers, facts. And numbers are facts, and facts don't lie. The other aspect is operational efficiency. Automating reporting process that previously consumed hours of manual work ensures that now organizations or the leadership or the managers can concentrate on more strategic roles. The routine, manual work can be, addressed through automation and reporting. So you find that with HR, with the dashboard, you're able to increase your efficiency in terms of execution. These systems provide you with the capacity to be able to, automatically address certain issues like statistics on, statistics on performance, statistics on engagement, and the system can give you, findings that now can help you make a decision based on what has been reported. And that now gives you, more time to concentrate on other things as opposed to really engaging so much on these issues that can be addressed by systems. Then there's strategic alignment. You can be able to, contribute to organization goals through quantifiable metrics of evaluation, and be able to understand what really is going on. And in terms of now, how are the outcomes aligning to your strategic goals? Are you moving in the right direction? Are you deviating from the goals? Because because the system provides you with an on-the-spot, evaluation, then at that particular point you can deduce whether there is an alignment with the strategic goals or not. Then we can be able to forecast future needs. You can forecast future HR needs in terms of, from the data patterns, you can see how the progression is going on, how things are changing. And of course, once you're able to establish the changes, then you can predict in future the possibility of certain situations occurring because you can see from the current database or the current data that you've been able to examine. So let's look at these core HR metrics. The first one is recruitment and talent acquisition metrics. These are some of the key metrics that you can be able to, develop your dashboard from. So one of the things that you can look into, you can come up with a time to hire, KPI. You can look at cost per hire, how much you're spending on these particular employees, and you can also be able to help you look at the return of ROI, quality of hire. You look at the performance of these employees, the new employees, against those who are already working, and see if the new employees are performing better than those who are already there. You can look at recruitment funnel metrics, applicant tracking right from application all the way to, onboarding, and see the efficiency of your recruitment process. You can look at the source of hire, how are these candidates performing based on the different sources. Maybe you're hiring from Google applications. Maybe you are hired from from the websites, maybe from LinkedIn, from Indeed, from these different job boards. You can see which job board gives you the best candidate, based on their performance. You can look at offer acceptance rate. How many people that have gone through the recruitment process have been able to accept the offer. So you can be able now to look at that can give you an indication of whether your employing your image is good, your compensation is within the market rates, or there's an issue. When you have lower acceptance rates, maybe the potential employees have looked at how your company is paying, your branding, and maybe they have identified there are issues with that, and that can really make employees pull back and reject an offer that is provided. We have another one, which is retention and turnover metrics. So this one, we look at employee turnover rates, a very important metric. You want to identify your retention capacity. Do you have challenges retaining employees? So this is a good indicator of the overall organizational health. So you need to understand that how many people are coming, how many people you have employed, and within certain timelines, how many have left. So you want to see your retention rate vis-a-vis your turnover rate. You want to look at voluntary and involuntary turnover. Those people who have left voluntarily, those people who have left based on organization's processes, whether it's retirement, layoff, redundancies. You might want to understand that. Turnover by department, you want to see which departments have high rate of turnover, which one has low rate of turnover, which department, has issues, maybe it's cultural or any other that is making employees leave that department. So you want also to look at tenure distribution, the length of service, which department has high risk of, of turnover. How many people have been able to work the longest in certain departments. So you want to identify the retention capacities, across the different departments and see their strengths, how they vary with each other. Because here you're trying to avoid the cost that comes to turnover. There's several costs that come to turnover. We have replacement costs, we have, advertisements, replacement costs, which include advertisements, this productivity cost, loss of man hours, when that particular employee has left. There's training costs because when you onboard the new employee, you have to take them through the process. So how then do you, minimize these costs that come with turnover? That is done by identifying early enough the reason that can lead to employees leaving, then address them at that particular point. So the dashboard will give you the information, the on-the-spot information at that particular point in time. And that from there, you can be able now to, look at what the figures are saying and address the chances of employees leaving early at that particular point, whether it's looking at your compensation packages, whether it's looking at your career progression, systems, that will be identified at that particular point. And then now you can be able to take appropriate action to address the reason that can cause your employees to leave. Now we have engagement and satisfaction metrics. So we have one of them is employee net promoter scores. We are measuring, the likelihood of employees recommending the organization to their friends, to other people. So that is a good indicator that the employee is engaged or is loyal to the company. We want to see whether employees are satisfied. So you might want to measure employee satisfaction scores. You want to look at the employee engagement index of scores. Their emotional commitment towards the organization. That is a good indicator of employee net promoter scores. Because when employees are engaged, then there's high chance that you will be able to promote this company. Participation rate in surveys, if you want to see if people are still or are willing to participate in survey, whether there is burnout in survey, taking, if there is fatigue, and so on. So you also want to look at training feedback scores, very important to see if there is, effectiveness in terms of learning. People learn, So you want to find out whether, there was transfer of training. Were there changes in terms of performance? Were there changes in terms of execution based on the training that you're providing. And also, suggestions by employees. So you might want to get, input from employees in terms of what they think regarding the organization. So from these suggestions, you can be able now to reflect as whether there is employee engagement or disengagement, and so on. And you find that most of the time, employees disengagement doesn't happen overnight. These happen because of it normally starts as a form of dissatisfaction, as a form of discontent. When employees are dissatisfied or they are discontented with certain things in the organization, then, and unfortunately they are not addressed, then they escalate to become conflict. So the surveys, the suggestions by employees can be able to identify this dissatisfaction at that particular point, so that you can be able to address them early enough before they transform to become disputes. So it is good to be able to really do these surveys continuously and identify, bottlenecks that come with employees' engagement, employee satisfaction, and address them at that particular point, so that you don't allow them to really escalate or progressively escalate into conflict or disputes. Then we have workforce demographics and diversity metrics. So you might want to do a head count, and be able to identify how many employees you have per department, per location, the employee type, whether they are contract, they are permanent and pensionable terms, you need to identify that. You might want to look at the full-time equivalent, whereby you want to, understand the number of full-time staff and total work hours done. This will help you to account for the full-time staff and the part-time or contract workers, and see the number of hours that the full-time workers engage against those who are on contract. That will help you identify the need for employing more people. Do you need contract workers? Are the employees who are on full-time enough to address the jobs, the work that is available? Or you need to bring in part-timers, because the number of employees who are there are not enough. So you need to, that will help you it will give you that, the figures to know exactly how well you're doing in terms of work execution against the number of employees. Then you want to look at the gender ratio, distribution of gender across departments, across sections. Age distribution, you want to identify, distribution in terms of age categories, those who have worked maybe between 0 to 5 years, 10 to 15 years, like that, and know, the number of people who are being able to work in those different age categories, in those different age categories, the years that they've been able to work. So you can also look at the diversity metrics, look at ethnicity, race, disability status, veteran status, and so on. So the idea is that when we look at the diversity metrics, it's important for compliance. There are compliance requirements in terms of employment. You want to look at your brand, your image of the organization. You want to share it out that your organization that value diversity. You are an organization that is inclusive in terms of employment, so that you don't build a picture that you discriminate against certain demographics, against certain age group, or against certain gender, against certain race, and so on. The other one is performance and productivity metrics. So you want to look at revenue. You might not look at revenue per employee. How much an employee is making. So you want to look at total revenue against the number of employees. You want to look at performance rating distribution. Performance assessment across workforce. How are people performing? How many are meeting the expectations? How many are exceeding the expectations? How many are working below the expectations? That is important. You might want to look at the performance of new hires and see how they are doing against those who are already existing, and justify. That will help you justify the source of recruitment, as a recruitment source that is worth, focusing on when you're doing recruitment. You might want to also to look at absenteeism rate. How many people absent themselves from place of work? That can be an indicator of so many other issues. Health issues. Workplace problems, uh, family problems. And so on. So when you look at that rate, it will help you. Have an idea of what are some of the or have an idea of what are some of the problems or issues that the employees might be facing, and that may be facing, and has led them to absent themselves from place of work, so that you address the issue and ensure that the employees now become more available. Overtime work hours, that can really be an indication of maybe deficiency in terms of manpower. You understaffing. You don't have enough people. That's why those who are already there are being overworked. And so you might want to see the extent to which overtime is being applied. Training completion rate, how many people have been trained and completed. This might help you measure investments in training. What, how many people have been trained? Have they been able to complete the training? Have they been able to really apply the skills that they've learned at the workplace? And has that led to improvement in terms of performance? Now, when you want to, let's move now to selecting these KPIs. Now that you've been able to understand the different metrics that you can measure, the different areas that you can look into when it comes to building your dashboard, then the next thing is, how then do we build this dashboard, or what do we focus on? So the first thing here is that you don't have to clutter your dashboard with so many metrics. You need to identify maybe 5 to 7 metrics that you want to look into. And this might be the key metrics that explain a certain aspect. If you want to look at the recruitment metrics, then what are the key KPIs that you want to look into? You might want to look at, time to hire, quality of hire, time of hire, quality of hire, depending on what you want to measure. If it's about, performance management, what are the key things that you want to look into? You want to look at, the expectations in terms of outputs. You want to measure the work done, against set standards, and so on. So you need to identify the key metrics that define, what you want to look into. Do you want to look at performance of employees against the industry performance standards? Do you want to look at the attrition rate of the organization against the industry attrition rates? And so in all these things, you must be able to pick 5 metrics or even 4, depending, that clearly explain that, that objective that you want to achieve. So you want, for example, to pick these 5. Time to hire, for instance. This explains operational efficiency. So you want to measure the recruitment speed. If it's employee turnover rate, a very important predictor of organizational health, you might want to identify how many people are leaving the organization against those who are remaining. Cost per hire, this is in terms of your financial efficiency. How much are you spending, in terms of recruitment? Net promoter scores, this is important when you want to measure the employee loyalty and satisfaction. How many people are loyal to the organization? How many people are willing to, promote the organization? This, the net promoter score and employee turnover rate might help you, give you an indication of how many people might be willing to work for you. So if the net promoter score is, is low, then that is an indication that there is a high chance that these people might leave the organization, and that will affect your turnover rate or your retention rate, for that matter. You want to look at revenue per employee. So productivity, how much an employee is making. So you're looking at the total revenue against an employee, and see the input that this particular employee is bringing on board. So you might want to look at, again, this might give you an indication in terms of now your return on investment regarding training. People, how many people have been trained? How much did you spend on training? And at the end of the training, did these people came in and improved in terms of performance? Did they increase their productivity? So those are some of the things that you want to look into when you're coming up with your KPIs. You want KPIs that really make the most sense in terms of achieving the objective that you want to realize, basing it on what your directors or your executives want to see or want to know. So you must be clear in terms of what you want to achieve. So your objective must be very specific. And then now, once you have your objective that is specific and focused, then now you can be able now to identify the metrics that you now use to realize or to meet those on that particular objective. So we have different data integration sources. Because now, when you say now that you selected your KPIs, you want, for example, to look at this file. Then the next thing is, where do you get this information? So you must be able to identify your sources of data, and we have different sources of data. So we have the internal source of data, and also we have the external source of data. So the internal source of data, we have the human resource, information systems. We have the applicant tracking system, the payroll, the time and attendance system, the learning management system, engagement platforms where people do surveys, they respond, and performance management platforms where people, their performance are evaluated, and you can get, the statistics in terms of how well these individuals are performing. So integrating this data is important because the reliable dashboards require integration of data from multiple sources. So it is important for you to understand your data landscape before you start building your dashboard. So you need to know where are you going to get this information. So if you want to get information about recruitment and selection or performance management, where do you get this information? For performance management, you can get information from, your performance management system, whether it's from Lattice, Reflective, Workday performance. We have different performance systems. So you need to understand where you get to get information. And now that will help you now integrate that data source into your Google Looker Studio so that now you can be able now to transfer information from the source into the analysis, platform where now you can now start building your dashboard. So we have the secondary sources of data. We have the finance and ERP systems. So mostly these secondary are also, we have also external sources where we have sources from, job market databases. We have industry reports. You can be able to get information in terms of industry trends regarding turnover, regarding, hiring processes. You can get information from government databases, especially when you're looking at compliance aspects. Government databases have information about, compliance, the legal framework, and all that. So you can also get information especially when you want to see how well, your departments, your organization are compliant with the laid down regulations. That can be accessed from the government databases. Before you start, building your dashboard, you must also look at your data. Have you done data cleaning? Very important. So the ethical practices with data management. One of them is data cleaning. You must ensure that your data is clean. If there are duplicates that are there, you remove them. If there are errors, formatting issues, all that is done. Check consistency issues, ensure that, the employee IDs, for example, department names are consistent formats. Completeness assessment. Look at missing data. If they are missing data, find out what sources what sources can be, set into to get the missing data. So when you have missing data, you don't run, you don't do analysis with missing data because it will impact on the analysis. Try to get, sources that might give you the information that can now help you fill up the missing gaps. So also you want to look at the historical data. How far back are you going to go? How frequently are you going to update your data? So you must also be able to understand the frequency of updating your data, because the frequency of updating data, it will impact on decision making. So are you going to update your data once a month, twice a month, depending on what you want to achieve? Then the update aspect is critical because again, it changes the data sets, and that changes the analysis, and of course, it changes the interpretation, and ultimately, it changes the decision making. So let's look at now the data or the dashboard development process. The first thing is planning and requirements gathering. What objective do you want to achieve? So you must be clear in terms of the objective. Do you want to reduce average time to hire by 15%? Then you will want to look at your recruitment metrics. Do you want to decrease volunteer turnover in an engineering department by 10%? Again, that will mean you look at your retention metrics. So depending on what you want to achieve, then that will now help you identify the key performance indicators that will drive you into getting the exact data that will help you address that problem that you want to deal with. So determine the data requirements for each KPI that you have identified. What is the data sources? What are the required calculations? The data quality concerns, update frequency, and even the needs for getting historical data. So who are your IDCs? So when you're building the dashboard, so initially as I started, I talked about having a dashboard and a report, or maybe we can build a hybrid of both. So if your audiences are the executive leadership, most of the time the executive leadership would want a report, a HR report, because this is a high level strategic, organ, and they might want to look at trends, because they want to make decisions that will affect the entire organization. If it's about HR leadership, department managers, they might want to have maybe a dashboard because they are the ones now who are tasked with the day-to-day running of the organization. So they want to have, on the spot information, understand what is happening, take the decision to address any problem might be identified from the analysis, and restore things back to track and ensure that everything is being done in the right way. So depending on who wants to get this information, you might decide to build a dashboard or a report or have a hybrid that consists of elements of a dashboard and elements of a report, which I normally find most organizations using. So how then do you begin building a dashboard? I'll be able to show you how we do this. This is just a presentation on how it's done. Then we'll be able to move to the Google Looker Studio, web application, and now practically, build the dashboard. So first thing is accessing the Google Looker Studio. The website is there. You need to have a Google account. I know most of you have this Google account. This Google Looker Studio is entirely a web-based application, so it means that you don't have to install any software. Number two is understand the data connector. So the Google Looker Studio has a capability of connecting to so many other data sources. So understand the data connectors that are there. So we have data connectors to Google Sheets, to BigQuery, to Google, to Excel. You can name them. So which one do you want to use? For our case, we'll use Google Sheets. So we'll be able to connect to Google Sheets. There are other third-party connectors. Now this one links to the system. We have HR systems, we have databases systems, like my SQL, SQL servers, these cloud storage, Amazon, S3, Azure, there's business application, there's social media platform, custom APIs and web services. All these are third-party connectors, which can be linked with the Google Looker Studio. So how do you begin? So the first thing that you need to do is you prepare your HR data in Google Sheets with clear columns and headers. Your data should be clearly labeled. Number two, you need to navigate to the Google Looker Studio or the Looker Studio and create a report. So when you create the new data source, you will be able to connect to Google Sheets. So there are different connectors there, but us will specifically connect to Google Sheets. Then choose spreadsheets and worksheets containing your data. Then review field names and data types and adjust as needed. So, some field names are in string format, they are in date format, they're in number format. So depending on what analysis you want to undertake, you will need to adjust that appropriately. Some numeric, aspects may include, summations. Others may include, count, distinct, averages. So you might want to see, do you want, sum of numbers? Do you want averages? Do you want count? Do you want count distinct? Depending on what you want to, your data set to appear, then you will be able to adjust that appropriately. Then review the field names, and adjust as needed. Then the dashboard layout. So how do you build this dashboard? So there are these guiding principles, for designing a good dashboard. So one is that there must be visual hierarchy. So you start with most important information at the top left. Be consistent in terms of the color that you're using. The fonts and types. Don't vary them. Avoid cluttering. Don't clutter your charts. Make them create space so that somebody can be able to see them clearly. Color psychology, green for positive, red for alerts. You need to have those distinctions. Chart selection, you match visualization with that type. If are trends, then use line graph. If are trends, use lines. If you want to look at categories, use bar graph. They can be able to show you distribution in categories. If you want to look at the density in terms of distribution, you might want to use heat maps and so on. Depending on what you want to, showcase or explain, then that will be provided. And understand the visuals types and how they are applied when it comes to sharing information. So recommended structure, header with the title. Then you have the executive summary, which is normally the scorecards. Then you have trends, line charts, comparative analysis, you use bar charts. Then you can also have tables, depending on what you want to showcase. Then the scorecard here is basically about the single metrics, head count, turnover rates. Then we can have a bar chart, line trends, line chart, pie chart if you want to show composition or, proportionality. Heat map when you want to look at the intensity, the density, the funnel charts, gauge maps, and all that. In terms of interactivity, styling, and testing, we need to add elements for interaction, date range controls, filter controls, drill down capabilities so that you can be able to filter information. So filtering information will help you get distinct, statistics, maybe per department, per gender, per recruitment source, depending, per position. If you're looking at individual positions, you want to be, in terms of styling and branding, applying themes that are clear, make sure that the colors can be seen. You can customize the charts depending on what you want. You can modify your X label, you can modify your colors and all that. Then test and validation, data accuracy, you can cross-check against the report, validate calculations manually just to be sure that they are correct, confirm filters are working correctly. You must check on the filters, drop down menu, and filter to see they're changing the charts. And then we have user acceptance testing. Can users find the information? This is about sharing. Do visualization make sense? Can somebody understand what you shared? Are there confusing elements? Does it answer key questions? Is performance acceptable? And all that. Then best practices, dashboard development best practices, start small, as I've said, use 5 to 7 metrics, iterate continuously, test the dashboards before, you share, and ensure that it's a living tool, meaning that whenever data is updated, then the dashboard also gets updated with the changes. Document everything, create a clear documentation explaining the metrics and the calculation. Establish data governance, define who owns the data quality and maintenance, know who is in charge of the data. Because we are looking at it from the point of integrity, data protection, and all that. Train your users, of course, people must be able to understand what you say. So it's good for practice to train them on what those visuals mean, so that they can understand what you are trying to relay. Common pitfalls to avoid information overload, poor data quality, invest in data cleaning. Before you build a dashboard, ensure that you clean the data, because data cleaning if it's not done, it affects the quality of your output. So ensure that you clean the data set before you start the analysis. Vanity metrics, track metrics that drive decisions. You don't just build a dashboard to impress. Build dashboards that help the stakeholders or the directors to make a decision. Ensure that you contextualize your dashboard. Link with benchmark data sets, data. Look at what is happening outside. Make comparisons. This is how we are doing, but industry statistics say this. So always ensure that you contextualize the information so that people can be able to understand how well you're doing against the industry standards, against their competitors. Build flexibility through filters and controls. Ensure that the dashboard is flexible enough so that people can filter through and get different information from the dashboard. Measuring success and continuous improvement. User adoption, percentage of intended users who regularly access the dashboard, how many people use that dashboard, it gives you, an indication of the adoption rate. Time saving, reduction in hours spent on manual reporting. Accuracy of insights, validation of predictions and recommendations. So your insight accurate? Can it be, can it be used to make decisions? And are those decisions, improving the organization? How the impact, as I've said, how is data impacting on decision making? Increase confidence in data interpretation by training people. People must understand what data, analysis is all about. The information that you display on the dashboard. What do they mean? Let them understand the bar graph will mean what, the line chart means what, heat map means what, and so on. Continuous improvement cycle, look at, do you want to review, your dashboards quarterly, monthly, quarterly, annually, depending on what you want to achieve. Then the next steps is we'll be able now to look at the Google Looker Studio. So I'll stop sharing this, then we'll go to the web application and I'll show you how to build the dashboard. So I'll stop this. Then I'll share. And let me just see where it is. Okay. So I'll share this. Okay, so here I will type Google Looker Studio. Here. So I want us to build a dashboard. I already built this one. So this is what I built. So I want to show you how to come up with this dashboard, the process that I took to come up with this dashboard. So I'll go back. So I come to a blank report. So click on the blank report. Then we see these connectors. There are so many, as we have said. There is Google, there is this Google Analytics, Google Ads, there is Google Sheets, BigQuery, Microsoft Excel, all these partner connectors, we have all this, depending on what you want to source your information from, you can always identify from the search button there. So as we want to go to Google Sheets, so it will link me to this. I have different Google Sheets in my cloud storage, so I'll pick this one. Then use filter as rows and include hidden and filter cells. So it has already ticked that. Then I add. So add the report. So we are now in the Google Looker Studio. So you can, go to resource and then manage added data sources. So you want to look at your data source. So you can edit. So you can see. So we have this data source. Data has different columns, absences, citizen description, date of hire, date of termination, department ID, date of birth, all that information, employee status, employee satisfaction. So from here, you have a picture of what the data set is all about. So we have a type, we have in numbers, we have in text, we have in date format. So default allocation, absences, they are in sum. So if you want, you can change to average, count distinct, depending on what you want to analyze. When you look at, employee engagement survey, it's in sum. If you want to change, you can change to average, depending. So we move back to our Google Looker Studio. Then we have the untitled report, this one. Then we want to work on this. Open it. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we need to have or to build we need to build or to come up with a title. Let me just open it again. Go back. Continue. Connect. Build our dashboard. So the first that we need to do is to have a title. So we come here, we click text, then we come here. So you type the title of your dashboard. So it's HR and analytics dashboard. So you can add the font size. Then you can come here, you center it. You can come here, you create a background color. I normally like blue. And then you come here. You can bold this. Yes, and we have our title. Okay. The next thing that we need to do is to come up with the metrics. I mean, the scorecard. So these are the different metrics that we are having. So the first one that we'll come up with is the headcount. So come here, add chart. add scorecard. Sorry. We come here, we put it here. So this is the head count. So we're having how many employees? 311 employees. The next one we can add is the number of, the number of absences. You can look here. There are figures on the number of people who have been absent, the number of times these particular employees have been absent. The 311 employees have been absent. So you can look at the total absence. So again, add chart. You look at the scorecard. Then here, so here we come here and look at the metric setup. So we want absences. Put absences there. So we can see that employees have been absent 3,184 times. You can even be specific and get the averages. Can come here where we have some, then we click on it, then we change to average. We can get the average number of times an employee has absent himself from place of work. So that is 10 times. So 311 employees have absent themselves at an average of 10 times for that entire period. Then we can also add another metric. So we come here, we can add another metric. We can talk about we can look at employee satisfaction. We can look at employee satisfaction. So we have, those are the total scores, but this one we want average. Average is 3.89. So in a range of 1 to 5, normally this one is done on a scale of 1 to 5. So 5 being the most satisfaction, 1 being the least satisfied. The highest satisfied is at 5. So when you look at 3.89, it means that it tends towards high satisfaction. We can have that. We can also include another metric. And this one we can talk about employee engagement. Yeah, so we come here. Employee engagement scores. Where is it? And here it is. Put it here. And again, we look at average. So what is the average? Come here. Average. So we have an average of 4. On a scale again of 1 to 5, it seems that employees are tending towards highly engaged. Because 1 is least engaged or not engaged, to 5, which is highly engaged. So at that score, you can see 4.1, it means it tends towards employees being engaged. So you can be able to see that employees at this particular organization, they are engaged. Then you can do another one. Maybe you can look at satisfaction or performance. So we can add another metric. So this one is, we can talk about performance. So look at performance scores. So we can again put average. So you can see performance scores is a bit low. Because again, on a scale of 1 to 5, 2.9, it means it's still below, is almost below the expectations. So you can see 2.9 on a scale of 1 to 5, it's below the expectation. And then we look at, we can also look at salary, average salary, how much employees are paid. on an average. So that again can come here. I'll go to, sorry, to 4, then put 1 here. Then even now we want to look at the average salary. So we come here and look at salary. Salary. Yes, it's here. So I come here and put salary. So we want to give you total amount of money that was paid in that period, but we want to see an average, on average, how much does an employee earn? So we have the headcount of 311. So how much on average does an employee earn? So you come here, salary, then you get an average. So an average employee earns 69,000 per month. That's an average salary. So from this metrics, you can be able to really, understand, have a picture of what the organization's, what's happening in the organization in terms of performance, in terms of numbers, in terms of absenteeism, in terms of satisfaction, in terms of engagement, in terms of performance, and also, your costs, how much people are paid, how much an employee is earning on average. So these are metrics that can help you have a picture of what the organization is all about. So next thing that we'll do, we'll start building charts. And the first one we'll build is we want to build a pie chart to see distribution, amongst employees in terms of gender. So you come here, you can pick even a balance chart, or a pie chart, put it here. So we want to see distribution between male and female. So here we want head count. So in the dimension, we'll put sex. We want gender, we put sex. On the metric, we put head count. It's already there. So we have female at 56%, male at 43%. So you've seen male are more than the female. That can give you an impression that this, but you see the percentages that they're almost, the female are slightly more by 13% to male. So you can see it can give you a picture on the diversity, on the gender distribution, gender diversity within the particular organization. The next chart we'll build is on, we want to look at absences, per department. So we want to see how the number of people or the number of absenteeism within the department, or even, performance scores per department. Let's look at performance scores. So we have the performance scores here. So let's look at performance scores per department. So let's add a chart. And this one will now have a bar graph. So we can put it here. Then we look at, so the metric here is performance score. So dimension, the dimension is the department. So let's look at the department. The department here. And then the metric will be performance. So let's look at performance. Yes, so you can see performance per department. So even you can have it as an average. You can see performance scores on an average per department. So you can see all the departments were almost within the same level. So you can see performance on a scale of 1 to 5, they were at least around 3, which is basically above average. We can also look at, we can see Or even you can look at, even you can even change to performance per head count. You can even change here and look at head count. So the department, not even performance per se, but you can look at the number of distribution within the department. So you can see the department that had the highest number of employees are production, followed by IT, sales, like that. So production had the highest number of people, and the least number of people are in the executive. So you can play around depending on what you want to achieve. So you can build another metric, another chart. This one is on, you can have one on recruitment source per headcount. So I had a chart. So this one we look at, you can use bracket again here. And let's look at recruitment source. So the dimension is recruitment source, and then per headcount. So let's look at each. For example, you can see how many people were employed through Indeed. It's almost 90. How many people were employed through LinkedIn? It's something. How many people were employed through Google? And so on. All, in fact, web application is almost the least. So you can see use recruitment sources. The highest is 87, which is Indeed. And the lowest is, I think, is the web application. So you can see how they vary. So you can know which source provides you with more employees. Then you can build another one and look at employee status by department. So let's go to, again, add a chart. This one you can have a stacked bar chart. So we'll have the dimension, the breakdown dimension, and the metric. So the first one, the first dimension is we look at the department. So bring the department, look for the department. Department is here. Then we break it down through employee status. So the breakdown dimension is employee status. So we look at let's look at employee status, employment status, it is here. And then the metric is the headcount. So we want to see how many people, So we want to see how many people within the departments are still active or voluntarily terminated or terminated for cause. So you can look at the production department, the people who are still active are 100 and something, they are more, they are the highest in terms of people who are active. Then the people who are terminated for cause or voluntarily terminated is also leading the production department, and the people who have been terminated for cause is also the production department that is the highest. Then look at IT, followed by IT, then sales, then software, then administration, then executive. So from here, basically this dashboard, you can view it. So this dashboard basically gives you just the descriptive. So you can be able to, understand what is happening currently. You know how many people you are there, the absenteeism rate, the satisfaction rate, the employee engagement rates, performance rates, and even salary, by employee. You can know the distribution in terms of gender. You can know the distribution within the departments in terms of numbers. You can see which department has the highest number, which has the least number. This, again, will affect your decision in terms of recruitment. You need to see which department to recruit more, based on these statistics. You can look at, the record, the sources of recruitment, which gives you the highest number of employees, which gives the least number of employees. You can look at, the distribution within departments. Those people who are still employed, those who have voluntarily been terminated, or who have been terminated for cause in terms of department. So you can know which department has a problem in terms of termination. This can give you an indication about your turnover rates, how many people are leaving the organization. So thank you so much for attending this presentation. So this is what I wanted to present for you, coming up with HR Analytics Dashboard. It is my pleasure sharing with you this information. We'll have more series of trainings, and stay tuned. I'll be sharing this information in my LinkedIn profile, and you'll get updated in terms of how I'll be scheduling these trainings moving forward. Thank you so much, and God bless you.